Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello again.
Let me switch to the main scene. We got 4 camera views this time.
Extra flashy.
Yeah, we are joined today by Moes and Adnan Ramlawi, 2 of our Mendix experts at TimeSeries. Can you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah, of course. I'm Paul. Over 6 years of Mendix experience, based in Utrecht.
Cool. I'm Adnan. 5 years expert Mendix experience, based in Almere.
Almere of all places.
Me. So,
Okay.
Let's
what are
keep
you
it
gonna?
friendly, guys.
Sorry. What are you gonna do today?
Well, we have, as the last couple of days, we have 2 videos lined up. And the first video we are going to watch is called Getting Things Done with the Data You Need. I have no idea what that video is about, so I'm very curious. The second video is called Build Better Customer Apps with Multi-Experience Development. So,
Sound good?
yeah. Both the videos are about half an hour long. That's a bit shorter than that. Like yesterday and the day before, we watch one video, take a little break to refill our glasses, and then we'll continue on with the second video. So,
Can't wait.
if everyone is ready, then I'll go and press play, I think.
Yeah, let's start the show.
Yeah?
Hit it.
Okay. Let's hit it.
Hi, I'm John Scolamiero, the Manager of Architecture and Governance in Product Marketing here at Mendix. And I'm excited to talk to you today about getting things done with data, which is our how-to course on Data Hub. Now I'm joined by my colleague Andrej, who's the Product Manager for Data Hub. And we're actually going to walk you through, step by step, getting things done with Data Hub today. With that being said, we think it's very important for you to understand why we built Data Hub in just a very short little explanation. Without the right data, people can't solve problems using software development. And more often than not, the applications that you build in Mendix, outside of Mendix, you need to get data from other systems. And so what we want to do is we want to take this thing that's already a problem and we want to empower you to find and use data more effectively and more efficiently. And what we found is by doing that, we can decrease the amount of time you're spending by more than 30% per application. And for those of you who've been in software development for a long time, you'll know you spend a lot of time on integration. But it's not just the integration of finding and using the data, it's actually pulling that data all the way through your whole application and putting it in the right places, giving the right user experience, but then ultimately resharing that data with other people. So don't take my word for it. I'm here with my colleague Andrej, and as I mentioned earlier, and we're going to actually just show you what this actually looks like in Studio Pro and what using Data Hub is actually like. So Andrej, how are you doing today?
Hey, John. Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me here. So what do you want to know?
All right, so we've sort of talked about why Data Hub and the fact that it's really here to help us be more productive when using data. So let's say I'm in Studio Pro and I actually want to get some relevant data. How do I do that?
Okay, so I'm actually in Studio Pro here at the moment, and I have an app that's intended to have company car information, like employees and what kind of cars, vehicles they drive. So my thinking was there's probably some vehicle data already available in the organization. So I want to find that, validate that it's something that I can use for this app, and then connect my app basically to it. So as you can see, we have this Data Hub panel here in the Studio Pro. And from here, I can start searching for things. And this is really convenient if you want to work with data that you're already aware of from other applications. You can just drag and drop it in. But if you want to learn about the data and validate that it's actually the data that you're looking for, you may want to open up the Data Hub catalog app to get more details and information about dependencies, for example. So let me show you. So let's go hunt for some vehicle information. So I see this fleet management application. It has vehicles, and there's something in acceptance and also in production. So I don't want to mess with the production at the moment for this demo. So let's have a look at acceptance and get some data on or some extra information on this service.
So that's really neat. That's like having a Google search integrated and built right into Studio Pro, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so I can see that there's this service here. I can see the classification. It's internal. I have version
Great script.
information. I can even see that there's 8
Some hype
applications
words.
connected to this to this service. There's a technical owner. It's an application that owns this service. And there's a bunch of entities or data sets, as you will, provided by this service.
So let's say I actually want to see who's using it. Can you show that to me?
I can go to landscape view, and it will show me a bit of the neighborhood of the application itself, as you will. So I see that there's this fleet management service, which is part of an application, and it has 4 entities that it's sharing with the rest of the organization. And then I see all the applications that are actually using, including how many entities they're using from this service.
I liked how you said neighborhood earlier. That's really kind of like a neighborhood view of what's related to this data, what's next door to it, and kind of what it's dependent on, right?
Exactly. You're seeing everything that's really relevant to yourself.
Awesome. So, okay, now that we understand it, how do we actually use the data that we want?
Yeah, so we found this this service that has vehicle information that's obviously very popular in my neighborhood, and I want to use it. So I go back to the Studio Pro, where I initially found it, and I can just take this vehicle data and drag it on my domain model, and now I can see it as part of my application. It looks like data. It actually behaves like regular data, like regular entities, as you would expect it in Mendix. So I can connect it to widgets and so forth. But on top of the entity, you see where it's actually coming from. So the data is still owned by this fleet management service.
The premise of the whole data hub idea, because I think everybody who's been in a project has suffered from like all the integrations and like how to handle them and stuff like that. But if I look now and I see like the fleet management on the right side, and it has like multiple check marks now in acceptance and like another version.
Yeah,
I'm starting to wonder
production.
like, or production. Now I'm starting to wonder like, okay, so how does it know which one I'm using, and like how am I sure that I'm actually using the vehicle data from a certain like environment?
Yeah.
I think they're gonna get back to this in a later stage. I had the privilege to get a sneak peek at Data Hub a few months ago, and there's actually a kind of like the REST published and consumed services. There's a specific pane for that where you can set like a constant for which environment you want it to hook up to. And I think how you should see the Data Hub pane on the right as more like the definition of the entities. So there's version 1.0.0 deployed on acceptance and production. So in that sense, it corresponds with that definition.
Okay.
That's how I see it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, it sure looks like they're making it easier, but you're also losing a little bit of control, I guess, which can be very vital in these kinds of situations. So I'm wondering if they'll address that.
I agree
And every
with you on
time I
that
want
part.
to use that data in my application, the application will go out to that service and fetch the data.
Let me stop you there and ask a quick question. You say it'll go fetch the data, but it still caches the data, right? So it doesn't have to fetch it every single time.
No, it behaves like data from a database in Mendix, and it will cache it in the runtime in memory as long as you're actually using it.
Oh, that's perfect. So how do we use this data?
When would that be? Like if it caches the data when you're using it. So like would it be like application runtime like all the time, or will it be just on a page?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's also what Adnan mentioned before. You kind of feel like you're missing the control that we have now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
normally you call, you know what you're getting, and you're doing your thing with the objects that you get in. Now it's just there, or it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Have it. Like, what can we do with it?
Well, really easy. Let's say, for example, that we just want some pages that show the data, allow you to paginate through it and search through it. So you have this functionality, generate overview pages, which has been in Mendix for quite a long time, which works on regular entities. And as you will see, it also works for these external entities. So now I have 2 pages. Let me connect that overview page to the home page. And basically now I'm done. I have 2 pages that show me data from another application. So to prove that, let me run it.
I kind of want to see what now that data source that they generated, what it says like that the data source is, or the like the data grid that it generated from the overview pages.
Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see it.
So it's starting the application. And now I can view the result. So we have the home page, the button to the overview page, and ta-da! There's the data from the service.
Okay, so that's really cool. I'd have to check the timestamps on the recording, but it looks like in less than a minute, basically, we created a connection to another system, and now we have it connected to user interface. We can like filter it, we can sort it, we can search it, we can paginate it, and we didn't have to do anything in less than a minute.
You can just the usual filtering
To be
functionality.
fair, I could do it in less than a minute with REST.json as well.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I could do it in less than a minute with REST.json as well.
but you're an experienced developer.
No, that's
Yeah, but just like somebody from the chat saying like how long does it take to like set it up and all that, like they've already set up the entire data hub and then did it in less than a minute.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah,
when would it be worth it?
Yeah, you have to create your initial catalog, right?
Yeah. And like, can you reuse that? Well, you probably can reuse it for we'll see.
Yeah, how do you manage who has access to what API? What's the authentication like?
Yeah, which app has access to which app?
Yeah.
Error handling.
Yep. Well, let's see.
Used to in Mendix works, so we can get all the Volkswagens. We can then sort them by name, and all this functionality comes to you for free when you're using these external entities.
That's really, really awesome. Okay, but let me ask you a question. Let's say I need some more information and I want to do a relationship or use related data. How does that work?
Okay, so let's see. We have this vehicle information that we found and you are using. So let's see if that vehicle has any associated information. So I can see what attributes it provides, but I can also see in the catalog what associations it has to other data. So
interesting.
There's label information, specification information. So let's have a look at this specification. Okay, so there's a name value. What do you think? Should we connect that one in our app?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, let's go to the app. We see that here. Let's open the domain model. Just drag it on. And there you have it, like you're used to with entities.
That's great. Go use it on something.
Okay, let's say we have this detail page.
I like the script.
And for the vehicle that we're displaying, we also want to show some specifications. So we'll take a list view, for example. Can be any widget you like, but in this case, we're selecting a list view. And if you're going to the connector pane, the one that you're used to using for selecting data that you want to connect to widgets, you see that vehicle and vehicle specification are available through an association. I can just drag and drop it on. And
so
I'm
this
done.
database.
So to prove it to you,
See, that's cool.
I will run it. And this takes a little bit more time because now we're actually going to deploy it to a sandbox in the cloud.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so now with
Yeah. I was wondering why not
He
local?
suddenly switched from running locally to sandbox in the cloud.
Yeah,
So does he explain why?
I'm not sure. Why
No, I
not?
can't imagine.
Let's check.
Deployed it to
Just
Sandbox.
casually
Let's see
being
what
like,
the result.
Well, he didn't misclick. He chose it. He chose it
no,
specifically.
exactly. He's so casual about it.
Yeah.
But it is needed for something that I'm sure of. But
Yeah, agree.
Are. Here's my homepage again. Let's look at some vehicles. Okay, this transporter. Let's find its details. Okay, and here you have a list of specifications.
That scroll bar though.
Obviously, you can see I'm not a UX person, so could use a little bit of space.
hey, he said he was not a US person.
Yeah, true.
But all the data is there from the remote service.
Still, that's super cool. Like, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so now let's see if we can get some more information. Like, can we see that now we're using this data? Then now we're another user of the data in the catalog?
Yeah, let's go into the catalog. So we're using the fleet management one from acceptance. So let's see if landscape information has additional information. All right. Yeah, so this is the one that I just deployed. And you can see that it has two entities. It's using vehicle and vehicle specification. So now this service has 9 connections.
I think that's why I deployed it in the sandbox, because the landscape view probably doesn't take local deploys into account.
Yeah, must be it.
Hope that's it.
I read the same idea in chat from Wieke. Curious to hear when the data is retrieved from the other app. Does every usage of the entity require a REST call? And if so, if one app is down, does that mean all apps that use this data are not usable? Goes against the idea of multi-app landscape that can be used independently from each other.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, like, if because he was talking about caching too, if it is like you get the data and it's like, I'm kind of the sense like it's OData that they're talking about, but if they're caching it in memory, or if the plan is to have more of like a Kafka-like solution where all the data is available, because it did say from database.
Yeah.
So how the technology is like under the hood, that's not really clear to me. I'm hoping they're going towards like a Kafka kind of solution.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Where you have like the data in your app actually in your database.
I think there's a Data Hub X-ray video as well, so that might give some information about how it works under the hood. Not sure.
Okay.
As you can see, so 9 applications using that service.
I have another question, Andrej. So we've seen a lot about using data and finding data, but what about if we want to share our data ourselves? How would we do that?
I'm glad you asked that question, because nothing is more important than sharing. Sharing is caring, right? So let's add some data here.
Oh, God.
So let's say we want to know what employees are driving these vehicles. So we have employee data. The employee has an idea. And we'll make that a unique ID.
Isn't
doing
an
this
auto
because
number,
Sorry?
it's an auto number, right? Shouldn't that be already unique?
Fair point.
Nice.
you don't want to share your internal IDs of the application to the outside world. So you always want to have some sort of ID that the outside world can rely on. So in this case, I'm creating explicitly an ID. And then let's also add the name of the employee.
Yep.
Okay. And the employee has.
So this is interesting because If the data, normally, if you would have the data from like non-persistent, you would not be able to draw the association that way.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot point from a persistent entity to a non-persistent one, given that, you know, it creates a record in your database.
Yeah.
So there is apparently something that they can uniquely identify this object to, so that they can actually store it and retrieve it later again. So
yeah, or they just store the ID or the reference to that object.
well, exactly. But what I more mean is, like, in that whole landscape, that object, they can identify it.
Yeah.
You know, on something else than the object itself.
Yeah.
If we feel like diving deeper into Data Hub this afternoon instead of the multi-development experience thingy, the Data Hub X-ray is about how Data Hub works in conjunction with OData. How you can easily just search for the right data sets, drag and drop. Well, we've seen that. How to scope support and how to address security and performance. So it seems as though some of the questions we have now are already being answered in another video.
Okay. We could always pick that one instead. Although I do think there's some overlap between these videos, probably.
We could skim through it for some information.
Yeah. Let's see how far they get in this video and see if we still have the question.
Okay, so let's first make sure that we have some data in here. I will generate an overview page. And what I wanted to show you here is that the generated overview page for the employee actually has a drop-down box where you can select the vehicle, and this vehicle is selected from the data from the service.
So that's super useful, man. That's really, really nice.
So this is also to show you that the data that you're getting from an employee from another service can easily be enriched by the data in your own applications. You can just draw associations between your own data from other applications, and make connections there. So let's see if I run this.
So what I'm kind of wondering now is because I think Data Hub is going to be like a paid service, right?
Yep.
But I kind of feel that there's two things here. Like one, there's the Data Hub where you have an overview of all your things. But like this, him having references to other objects in another application feels to me like it should be or could be like default Mendix stuff. So I'm wondering whether or not they'll allow features like this if you set up some sort of configuration in your Mendix application. That might be like more difficult and less, but that you can still use this functionality. Because it would be a shame if because this is pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
You could only use this if you have the Data Hub.
I'm afraid we know the answer to that question, right?
Yeah, maybe, but yeah.
No, but you're right on that.
And it seems like they're really pushing Data Hub in everything, in the keynotes, in almost every video. There's some reference to the Data Hub. So
even last year on Mendix World, I think they already said things about Data Hub, right?
Yeah.
So like they've obviously put a lot of time and effort into this, and it looks good. But yeah, let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. Also a good mention by week. If you start using this, you're kind of locked in. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid of that as well. You could always rework it, but that's a hassle.
Yeah, and what's unfortunate is that it seems like a really nice way to consume an OData feed, which, you know, we don't really have a solution for right now, apart from, you know, doing a normal REST call. And if you need to have like Data Hub just to be able to do that, you know,
Yeah, that would be a shame, especially since they've already developed the functionality inside of Mendix.
Yeah.
It works. I haven't shared it with the world yet. So what I want to do first is make sure it works correctly, and then I will make it available to other applications and other developers. So let's see. So I have this additional overview page. I don't have any employees entered yet into this application, so let's add something. So John, I think you're driving an Audi,
give me a car
right?
now.
Yeah. I think, yeah. You showed me some great pictures of your Audi, so let's enter you as a guinea pig in this system. So now I have some data. So as you see, it's really easy to create, enrich your remote data with your own data and connect them. And I already have a page where you can select data from a service and use that in combination.
Is in that this overview, you don't see the car that John is driving, and I wonder if that's because he didn't put it on, or because it's not possible to show that data.
Ooh, good one.
I think that's like the main question about that I have when I see all of this. Like, where are we able to use these entities? Because if the customer asks, like, "Hey, I want to see the car here," and you're like, "Well, I can't do that because that's the purple entity, and I can only use the blue entity here." And they're just gonna say to me, "Well, make it blue then." And then in the end, I'm gonna copy over my purple entity to the blue entities anyway.
Yeah.
And then I might run into issues because, as far as I can tell, I will not have a specific push or check that there's new data. Maybe it will be in the future, but I haven't seen it here yet. So I'm gonna build all these flows to copy over the data anyways, and it's gonna retrieve all the data from the database and all of that. So I would have been a lot more like happy if they would show me here that you could see that model. But
maybe the video isn't over yet. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be possible to add that attribute to this overview page.
Especially because they mentioned database already.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also haven't shown like how to use it in a market flow, and I also wonder like how will it handle like delete behavior. So like if the Audi gets deleted on the other side, like what kind of issues will you run into? Like how do you do validations here?
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
With your own data. Now, what I want to do is take this employee information and share that with other developers in the organization. So I go back to my application, and here I have my employee data, and I can just select expose as OData resource. That will create an API on top of it. From a security perspective, I can secure it like any REST API that you create with Mendix. It will honor all the security constraints that you put on your data, on your entities. So you get the usual security that you have in Mendix. You also get for these APIs and how you share data. So let's create a new service. So employee data API. And what you see here is that I've created a service. It has already a versioning 1.0.0. It has a location. Currently it's running localhost, but obviously that will change. And then you can select what entities you want to expose through your service. So I've selected employee. What you can do here is select which attributes you want to make available, which you do not want to make available. You could even include associations to other data. And you can provide document
system ID. Did I just see that?
Yeah, it's default, I think.
But is it selected? Or you said default? Are you sure?
I think it. Yeah, it's default ticked.
Oh, okay. You can't see that from this. Oh, okay. So okay, then that's.
But you can select that association, right?
Oh, you didn't.
But I mean, but that's interesting because that association is to an entity that's the purple one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how would that fit in the whole landscape? If you have one entity connected to another entity that's in another app, and how
Yes, I think
it's able to like bring that all together, and then you have all the different versions of your apps. Like that's gonna be interesting.
I guess
want to make available.
Sorry, I think it just shares the association table then, which is going to be interesting. But then again, it uses the system ID if that's default selected, so there must be that it shares that.
Yeah.
You do not want to make available. You could even include associations to other data. And you can provide documentation, so to make it really easy for people to understand when they find this in the catalog, to understand what they're looking at.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you should mention that, Andrej. And I want to touch on two things you just said. So first, while you're building this out, the security thing is really important. So basically, we can confirm consistent security and ensure consistent security as you're connecting things, because they have to use the underlying security model of the downstream application. So that's really important. And I think the other thing that was interesting and important is that you were showing the ability for us to deal with and reshare combinations of external and internal entities. So not only can we share data that our app has itself, but we can actually share a curated form of external data. And I think that's really an interesting use case that we've actually seen some of our customers start to use. So thank you for showing that.
Very observant for you to see that. Okay, so now we have this API, and we can deploy it. And this is going to be taking a little bit of time because we're going to deploy it to a sandbox. And then when you deploy it, the Mendix CI/CD pipeline, or the deployment pipeline, will automatically register the data that you've shared in the catalog. So it will automatically become available for other developers in your organization, so they can discover it and use it in their own applications.
That's interesting. So let's actually see that work first.
It looks like it's deployed. So let's have a view. Okay, so the only thing we now changed is the fact that the API that we just created is registered with the Data Hub catalog. So let's see if we can actually find it. And what I'm going to do is look for employee.
Okay.
And here I can select what environments I actually want to see. By default, it will show you APIs and services that are in production. But in this case, it's available in a sandbox. So let's search for it. And then here it is.
Huh.
So now I can provide it to my colleagues, and they can use my employee data to use that in their own applications.
That's awesome. Although, Andrej, real quick, let's look at the neighborhood view, or the landscape view.
He's sharing it from a sandbox, right?
Okay, so that's kind of fascinating, because something that you just didn't mention here, but just by deploying that app, in one click, now not only do we have the context and the metadata about it, but now we can actually see who's using it and what its dependency graph looks like. And that is pretty powerful.
Exactly. And previously, we're looking at the neighborhood of fleet management, and we could see all the applications that were using that service. Now we're looking at the neighborhood of the application we just created, the company car demo, and we can see that it's exposing one service with one entity, the employee. But we can also see that that company car application is using the fleet management service. So we see the neighborhood of the application we just created.
So we've seen a lot of Mendix apps talk.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It does give a good overview.
To other Mendix apps, Mendix services and data talking to other Mendix services and data. What if we were to look at something that isn't a Mendix app or isn't a Mendix service? What would that look like? Can we do that?
Yeah, so this is a completely open system based on open standards. So what we're using here is OData, in fact. And anything that provides an OData API can be registered in the Data Hub. So if you go back to the homepage, you'll see that on the homepage, it not only shows you the popular services in your organization and some other resources and documentation, it also offers you the ability to register a new service. So, and what you can do here is register an application, what environment it's running in, what services it has, and then you provide the service contract. You can upload it through a zip file. So you can take an OData metadata contract, upload it here, and then it will become available for other developers to find in the catalog and use in their applications.
Is that something we can do right now?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. I'm going to reuse an application that is already out there. So if I know the application that I want to register a new service version for example, then I can just fetch that application. I see, okay, I have an application sub, SAP, and it has a sandbox information. Yeah. So we have a sandbox environment of SAP where a number of services are available. So now I can click next. And in this environment, I want to provide information about an additional service that's available. So I'm going to browse and look for the contract information that I have. There's this information file. You ask it to validate it, and then there's this contract information inside. You select that you want to use that one. And then this is actually a service of SAP for bills of material. So it gets parts and item information on the bills of material. So SAP BOM 1. I need to know the path that it's running on. So it's running in SAP HANA Cloud. It's not, so yeah, it's a HANA application. I can add some tags here to make it easier for people to find it. And now I've registered the SAP Bills of Material service as an OData endpoint that people can use in their Mendix applications.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that, Andrej. That was a great set of demos. So to recap, using external data in application development is still just too hard. Now, we believe we can make it more effective for you to find, use, understand, and then reshare data throughout your organization. And we showed you how we believe that we can do that, and that, frankly, it's able to save you over 30% of your time per application. On top of that, we showed you how easy it is for you to use that not only Mendix OData, but to also bring in OData sources outside of just Mendix. Thank you again for your time today.
Okay.
All right.
Video 1.
That was pretty interesting, if you ask me.
Yeah.
A lot of questions, but
Yeah.
in general, I think this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean the overview is cool. I mean the functionality is pretty like cool as well. But it all depends on like those questions that we have and the answers to it. I mean that can make it like a full functionality that is actually useful, or something that could be very cool but isn't.
Yeah, the thing that worries me is that because of how sort of like what we've seen, if you don't have all the functionality that you currently have for persistent entities, you're gonna have a lot of workarounds to be able to do with it what you want, and then it might be easier to just use a non-persistent entity in a normal REST call.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I'm really hoping that we'll be able to do everything with it. Even set like XPath constraints and entity access, those kind of things. Yep. But we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. What I also wonder is, because nowadays you can, on your data grid, you can also use the microflow and then use the REST service as your source, right? And that's kind of similar to what they're showing here, but you kind of also lose functionality of your data grid, which was limited in the first place. So I'm wondering if that's going to happen as well here. So if you use an external data source, whether or not you're going to lose like a sorting functionality or like stuff like that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because the vehicle overview page was from that OData call, and he searched, and I was sorting, and I was paging.
Okay.
So I think that is possible, and I also think that that's part of the reason why I do think that everything is handled as a persistent entity. So
it's just a question: when does the data get synced?
Yeah. How does it behave in a not normal situation?
And in more complex landscapes as well, because let's be honest, this is like a very simple explanation of how data works. It shouldn't be anything other than that, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah. I'm curious to see how this works with bigger apps.
Yeah, what makes me curious is like as an example, you give employee, but employee, like in almost every system, is such an entity that you use so heavily with extensions, entity access, you display it all over, a lot of searching and filtering on it, and those kind of things. So here's really like employee to me is the biggest test. You know, if you can really do all of that, then that you want to do with an employee as it is a persistent entity, then Data Hub is amazing and great. But we'll see.
Yeah. I also wonder how it will work with because he said that security is like a big thing, and that it abides all the rules that you set in your access rules.
That's the access, right, of the other application, the one that you're publishing it from.
Yeah.
So how are you going to handle that if in your own application you're consuming the data? You say, well, this manager can only see the employees of his own business line. Are you able to build a constraint like that? What I'm seeing right now is we have not seen nothing about the security access and those kind of things. So my assumption is no.
Yeah, well, that is what he said, though. He said it will it will have the same kind of security as your as the actual application that uses the data, and that was like his selling point. But I don't see how that's realistic, right?
I think it's like a two-way street. So on the publishing side, you can set access rules, for example, for your OData user, saying you can, as OData user, you can fetch all my employees, so they get fetched to your consuming application, and in the consuming application, you can say, okay, so of all the fetched employees, the company owner can see employees where whatever. So you can have it both ways, basically. Because it is handled as a persistent entity, you can set an XPath constraint on the consuming side as well.
But that would be interesting. That means that you can only do all of that if you would have all the data in your system already, like some of those constraints and some of those things.
Yeah.
Let's say if you put an entity access on there that says I can only see the employees that belong to my business line. You can only know that if you have all the data already in there and associated.
Yeah.
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing, right? To me, it feels like this is the way Mendix always introduces new features and functionalities. They have to start somewhere, and then somewhere along the line it gets improved and improved and improved.
Somewhere it's something called app services,
So
what those.
Yeah. So what do you think? Should we watch the X-ray vision about the Data Hub, or should we continue with the video we were actually getting to watch?
About multi-experience development.
Yeah.
It's about chatbots, augmented reality, voice assistants, progressive web apps, native mobile and TV apps.
Sure. Let's do a new topic.
A new topic.
Okay.
I agree. So let's take a 2-minute break, get a refill and stuff.
Yeah, and we'll be back soon. See you guys in a minute.
All right.